Okay, everyone, welcome to the latest edition in the Wherefour webinar series from work orders to profit. We are going to spend some time, as the name certainly points out, talking about production planning, and reporting as well. So again, we're going to deliver as much information as possible here in a short period of time, and then you are certainly welcome to reach out to us if you want to look into things further or talk about issues specific to your business. So a couple of housekeeping items. I will be putting out information at the end if you want to email us. So I will deliver that information at the end. If you have any questions, you can type them into um, the Q&A chat section, and we'll answer them either in line or as things come up or at some point later in the presentation. And then lastly, we're going to launch a poll here quickly, just a couple of questions that will help guide things and help our follow-up. So if you don't mind weighing in on that, it would be great. So really quickly here, we're going to spend a very little time in PowerPoint and most of our time in the actual system, but some of the things that we see that folks talk about that come to us that are using either old systems or some sort of more commonly more of a paper slash spreadsheet system where things are planned and uh, a little bit disjointed. Information is usually siloed to specific people that are running the spreadsheets and sometimes sent out in some sort of report format. Um, we say spreadsheet hell here because these things get out of control and and difficult. They get errors in them. Usually one or two people know how to operate them, and if they break and that person happens to be on vacation, then things are in deep trouble. So once things get system driven, what that does is everyone's working in the system has visibility into information. First of all, things are much more efficient. You have everything in one place, all of your purchasing, all of your orders, your forecast, all of your production sits in one system. And so information can be spread into reports and to the various operational departments. You can become data driven, which means that you can look forward instead of reacting to things that happened in the past. You can use data to make decisions quickly instead of at the point in time when you've started to either profit has gone down or we start to lose money. So I'm going to turn off my camera here, and we are going to hop into Wherefour, specifically into the production area. And the first thing we're going to do is look at the MRP. Basically, everything starts with demand, and that's going to be either a sales forecast or some companies are actually order driven. So whether the demand is forward looking based on a forecast or you're actually reacting to orders in the system, that's going to drive the first level of our system here that's going to look at finished goods specifically over a specific time horizon. When are we going to run out of finished goods, or when are we not going to be able to fulfill our orders based on the inventory that we currently have on hand, and as well as the production. So we have a few items in our system here. You can imagine that the more items you have, the more complex this gets. The nice thing is it's no more complex in the system because everything is here and we're just crunching more numbers. We're not having to um, monitor 50 things manually. They're all getting monitored in the system. So if I want to expand specifically, these chocolate bars are in the system and it works for anything, whether it's food, cosmetics, nutraceuticals. It doesn't matter what the product is. The inventory management works in the same way. Basically, what do we have on hand? What does our forecast look like over this 4 week time horizon? And obviously, the further you can look out, the more proactive you can be. In this example, we're looking at 4 weeks. That could easily be 6 weeks or 8 weeks, uh, 6 months, whatever you want to do. We can also see in the system here that we actually have some production scheduled in the second week of our forecast. A little bit small work order we have scheduled in the third week of the production forecast, but um, we're going to run out of material here by week 3, basically meaning we need to schedule some more production. We can bump this up. We have options, but basically in this snapshot here, we can see exactly where we're going to run out of materials. And most companies, once they get into a system, will have some sort of a benchmark. In this example, maybe the case is we want to keep at least 2 weeks on hand, and we're actually covering that in this example because we're not running out until weeks 3 or 4 here. But this does mean we are going to need to schedule some production here so that we can bump it out an additional 2 weeks. So again, the further we look out, the more proactive we can be. So next is basically we set up a production plan. We have work orders that are sitting in our calendar here. So I'll take a quick look at that basically. And what we're going to look at here is all of the production that we have scheduled out over whatever our time horizon is. So we can look at it from on the calendar and see what we have scheduled over the specific time horizon and see how organized it is. We can also move things around to reschedule them if we want to and actually affect our production and do the planning and get it organized. And then that's going to be reflected in our MRP here. So basically, we've scheduled all our production out over this time horizon. The next step of this is looking downstream and saying, what do we need in order to make the products for the production that we have scheduled? So we're going to change our filter here and we're going to look specifically at raw materials. And it's going to be the same sort of schematic here. If I look at all the raw materials, it's basically looking at the recipes that are used to make these products or the formulations and saying, based on those formulations, what raw materials do I need and in what quantities? And then it's going to look out over this time horizon and tell us when are we going to run out of these raw materials, basically. And in this example, we have kind of an interesting thing here. We have enough for this week. We don't have enough for next week, but we do have enough for the third week. And if we expand this, we're going to see that we actually have a purchase order outstanding to buy some of this material, but it's not going to arrive for 3 weeks. So we can call the vendor and bump this up. We can order more from a new vendor if the lead time for this one is too far out. But again, we have the ability to react before the day of production. We go out there and we don't have enough material on hand. We can be forward looking and proactive and see when we're going to run out of materials. And we can actually automate this. So if I highlight this button here, I can actually create purchase orders. And what it's going to do is it's going to queue up purchase orders for the amount of material I need over this time horizon. So we're not going to do it today for time purposes, but we might set up an MRP for 12 weeks for production planning, but maybe we have another one that's just 2 weeks or 3 weeks that's going to look at a purchasing time horizon. So we can have as many of these for different functional purposes that we want. But if I click on this, it's basically going to queue up purchase orders in the vendors area. And if I were to rerun this, every time I do something and rerun it, it's basically going to take into account any new things that I do in the system, like schedule production, create purchase orders. If I actually receive inventory into stock or if I make materials, it's going to affect the MRP calculations. I just rerun it, and all that new data is going to be in the system. Whereas in a spreadsheet, you'd have to manually update it constantly. So if I go back into my MRP here and look at the raw materials, basically, we can see over this time horizon that we now have enough of these materials because we've created a purchase order. And if I expand it out here, and let me take away the lead times. If I expand this out, we actually have purchase orders that have been created to bring this material into line here. So that's kind of all about production planning. How do I plan production? How do I plan purchasing? Um, and then kind of rerunning it to make sure that my plan is what I expected it to be. The second step of this is actually running production. So essentially, we've got a work order queued up here to make some product in this case. The first step of this, and we're not going to really talk a lot about compliance today, but one thing that we do is cover automatically traceability. So in this example, we have 4 lots of material that based on a first in, first out basis, in order to make this product, we're going to consume 4 lots. The reason being, we only have a certain amount on hand of each one, so the system is automatically going to the next one. And it's going to track all those. So from a traceability or audit standpoint, we're going to be able to trace all of our lot codes to specific batches of materials. So if I record that basically and Nothing, it's never a perfect world in manufacturing. We're expecting to get 3,000 pounds of this particular material. We're making this bulk chocolate at $2.42 a pound, but let's say some fell on the floor, some got stuck in the equipment, and we actually only got 2,700 pounds of it. You can see because my yield went down, my cost per pound went up. I'm very easily able to modify work orders to the real world in the system and reflect what we actually made instead of some theoretical amount. And we get a batch report for everything. So this is going to show us a couple of things essentially. Um, we used all these raw materials. These are all tracked to this. We used a certain quantity of them. Inventory is automatically reduced. We're getting the cost for it. And so we actually produced a certain amount of product here at $2.42 a unit. So we get exact costing in the system for what was produced. And so the next thing we're going to do is kind of hop into the reporting, or how do we analyze that after the fact? We're getting everything we need, inventory management, costing, traceability. We're going to go through a couple of examples of how that might be very useful for the business on a forward-looking or planning basis. So we're going to hop into some reporting and dashboarding here. So in the end, basically, we have how much we cost us to make a product. We know what we sell it for because we're selling it and shipping it to customers. And so we get automated margin by product reporting at a product level. A lot of times when folks implement our system for the very first time, they're able to see exactly where they're making their money on which products and on which customers. And then we can also look at margin percentage by product. You can see that it varies dramatically here. We have some products that are very high margin at 95%. We have other products that are running in a 50 to 60% range. So again, if we can affect profitability on certain products, it's going to drive our bottom line kind of across the business. So very easy to see in an automated fashion where we're actually making our money. Another view at this would be, and we can look at monthly average cost for products. So on a monthly basis, what's our per unit production cost so that we can see how things vary over time. So if we look at this specific product in, the second month here, it's running at 22 bucks a unit. We actually got more efficient and it's running at $18 a unit. If it was the opposite, obviously, we could look at this and say, hey, my cost of goods has gone up on this item by 20%. I'm going to need to look at raising my prices on a proactive basis instead of waiting 3 months down the road and all of a sudden I see my bottom line's gone down. And then I have to go back and do a bunch of manual calculations and spreadsheets to see what products costs went up and where am I not making money now. Whereas again, in real time, we can see where our costs are going up on a product basis or a category basis and make forward-looking decisions based on that. And then lastly, um, I can look at production yield by product. You saw that we're able to go in and report actual yield in the system. So we can look at what I expected to make and all the production runs I did over the last 30 days or last 60 days or last week. And I can look at what the actual produced amount is. So on this particular product, peanut butter, I'm running at about 90% of what I expect to get from a yield basis. And so I can go look specifically at that manufacturing process and see why things are less efficient than I expect them to be. Maybe my expectations are unrealistic, or maybe there's some point in the process where we're wasting, again, maybe things are falling on the floor, maybe the machine is more product is getting caught up in the machine for some particular reason. So we can really analyze our production based on some data that we've gotten out of the system and make modifications to the production to try to drive that up. And then again, we can look at this if we wanted to. We could look at yield on a trending basis. Maybe next month we get it up to 92 and then 94, and we can really see progress based on decisions that we've made. So that's a very quick look. Again, we wanted to keep things to 15 minutes. I'm going to check here and see if anyone has any questions before we kind of wrap things up. If I look at this, what's our question here? I'm reading it. So somebody's asking on a customer level basis. Can we tell profitability? Absolutely. We can go in and we do have a lot of pre-built reporting in the system in our Insights product. But if I go in here to my queries here and I want to see specifically on sales, I can go in and look at margin by customer, pull that data up. I can have this on a dashboard. I can have it emailed out to me every month. So you can put specific reporting on cadences in the system. So in this example, this is dollar margin by customer. So I can see that I'm getting most of my margin here on my top three customers, which is very typical. A lot of times, um, most of your sales come from, the old 80/20 rule. Most of our sales, 80% of our sales are coming from 20% of our customers, that sort of thing. If I want to look at this differently and I want to visualize it in a pie chart, so I really want to see how this looks, I can basically look here and see that it's actually not 50%. It's more like 80% of our business is coming from our top three customers. So we want to make sure, of course, to treat those ones right. So um, that's the only question that we have. So I wanted to thank everyone for attending. And as I mentioned, if you have specific questions that are relevant to your business, you can go to our website, do some research. We have a bunch of webinars that are online. So if you're interested in the compliance aspect, we didn't go a lot into traceability today, but that is built into the system. We have a compliance specific webinar that you can take a look at, or you can send me a direct email if you'd like, and we will be following up with a recording of the webinar if you happen to miss some of it. But certainly, if you have specific questions, feel free to email me directly. And we hope this was useful. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of time out of your day, and please reach out.